3 games, 2 wins for the Nashville Predators over this long holiday weekend. Are you satisfied with what you saw on the ice from the Nashville Predators? Plus, Luke Evangelista starting to heat up. What do we make of his game right now? We'll talk about it on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to start with a special hello to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week in, week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at The Hockey News.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, the Nashville Predators have played 3 games since our last episode on Friday. We had MLK Day off yesterday, so if you tuned in and didn't see any new episode, don't worry.
It was our quiet phase.
Yeah, it was a period of self-reflection for us here on the Locked On Predators podcast.
That's right.
Nashville Predators played 3 games, won 2 of them. I would say 2 wins, kind of being a little bit statement wins. Had a chance for a third last night against the Vegas Golden Knights. Couldn't quite pull it off. So Ann, let's start with the Vegas game from last night. A interesting game for the Nashville Predators. Early on in the game, just a lot of pressure for Nashville, really controlling the game. But unfortunately, Mark Stone got a counterpunch, got a goal on the board for the Vegas Golden Knights. Mark Stone then scored again right at the start of the second period. Luke Evangelista got one back on a nice deflection. We'll talk about him getting hot in just a second. Made it a 2-1 game, but then Mark Stone, yes, we've said his name before, gets the hat trick at the end of the second period, makes it 3-1. Jonathan Marchessault added an empty net goal in the third period, despite what I thought was a really good period for the Nashville Predators. Wound up being 4-1 Vegas, although a score that I don't really think reflected how well Nashville played in this game. And what is your one word for yesterday's loss to the Vegas Golden Knights?
My one word is Vegas themed. Having been to Vegas, I went there for my honeymoon. I went there for my 40th birthday. It was an experience the first time. You got to know what you're walking into when you go to Vegas. I knew better my 40th. But my one word is 2 cherries. Because, I only play the slot machines in Vegas. That's just my jam. I don't do any of the tables or anything like that. I'm a slot machine girl. And the Vegas game really felt like instead of 3 cherries, you kind of got 2 cherries where you thought like, hey, I might win something here. I might win something big. And it just didn't quite happen. But I agree with you that the score did not reflect the game. It was a, 4-1 final score, but really, certainly in the first period, I feel like Nashville controlled that game. They kind of outplayed Vegas. I think Logan Thompson had really one of his better games in net for the Predators. They really had trouble getting anything past him in the game. But this was a game where I feel like it could have maybe gone Nashville's way had they played just a little bit better defense in brief moments where Mark Stone was on the ice.
Yeah.
Curse you, Mark Stone. But it was a good game where you thought, hey, we might be able to win this. It was 2 cherries on the slot machine, just not 3 cherries and a bunch of change falling. So yeah,
we got the lemon. We didn't get the last cherry.
No, It was very disappointing. I will say this, I like to give shout outs to people when deserved. And even though I am not particularly happy with Mark Stone's hat trick, that was actually his first regular season career hat trick, which shocked me.
Was it really?
His first regular. Now he has had them in postseason, but that was his first regular season hat trick. And I thought, well, weren't we nice? Weren't we a little too nice?
Interesting. That's kind of a wild stat.
I know, shocking. I'm like, you've been around since the dawn of time, Mark Stone, and yet this is his
Yeah.
first regular season hat trick.
Yeah, I'll always remember him as the guy that got nominated for the Calder instead of Philip Forsberg. So it feels like he's just too Philip Forsberg. It seems like has a hat trick every 3 weeks.
He
or
really does.
whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kudos to Mark Stone.
Sort of.
Sort of. And my one word for this one is Clubber Lang. If you've ever seen Clubber Lang, if you've seen the movie Rocky 3, Clubber Lang is Mr. T.
Okay.
This just big, mountain of a man who just, throws punch after punch after punch. Is just a power hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And, first he just beats the crap out of Rocky. That's how the whatever before the climax is the turning point of the movie that causes Rocky to go back to Apollo Creed and train and do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that Rocky eventually winds up winning at the end and winning the title is because he's kind of learned Clubber Lang's strategy. Clubber Lang likes to go for the big hits early. So as long as he can, avoid those and kind of tire him out, he has a good chance of winning. So you see Rocky like early in the movie, in the first round, he's taking punch. Then he's like using his agility to kind of dance around, and Clubber's just throwing these big haymakers. And, some of them are missing, some of them Rocky's blocking, and some of them are hitting, but Rocky's still, taunting. He's like, "You're not so tough. Come on, you're not so tough." And the longer it goes on, the more that Clubber gets tired. And then Rocky strikes. And that seemed to be the story of the Nashville Predators last night. They threw some haymakers early in that game. They were really controlling the puck. I think it was like they outshot, I think at one point, like it was like 10-0 shots in favor of Nashville for like the first, 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah, almost 15 minutes.
And they were just really putting chance after chance after chance. Logan Thompson, I thought, had a really good game, just couldn't really crack him. And then Mark Stone gets the counterpunch. And then it's like, okay, the Predators are still kind of fighting back a little bit, but then Mark Stone lands another goal. Oh, and here's a big hit. Evangelista gets one back, but then it's, Mark Stone scores again. And it's just, you kind of wore the Predators down with all these, they swung early. They were dominating possession, but it just seemed like every goal from Vegas was just a big counterpunch. And then eventually just kind of wore the Predators down. And that's what last night felt like.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And it was frustrating because I think the Predators really were competitive in this game. Now, we do have to say that the Vegas Golden Knights were without Jack Eichel, who is, I think, one of the best players in the NHL right now. Know, and they also had like another handful of players that were out. But I think the Predators played a good game against the reigning Stanley Cup champions and against a team that still has plenty of talent. So, it was a disappointing loss, but I'm not sure we should weep and gnash our teeth quite yet.
Yeah. A goal from Luke Evangelista in this game, and it came off a deflection. Luke Evangelista, of course, had a goal against the Islanders as well. So that's now back-to-back games with a goal for him. Also played 15 minutes and 20 seconds of ice time against Vegas, which was his highest total. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's one. It was his highest ice time since December 5th against the Blackhawks. So, Anna, are we starting to see maybe Evangelista starting to turn things around and get stuff hot?
Yeah, I really do think that he's kind of peaking at this point in time. Full disclosure, and even Evangelista has said this in talking about it. Remember that like development in this league is not linear, but we've seen him kind of struggle in some times and kind of go spurts where he really wasn't able to generate much offensively. But recently, 2 goals in the last couple of games, I think Evangelista is kind of settling into the NHL game. So I think this is a player to definitely keep your eye on for the Predators coming up through the rest of this road trip. And let's just see what he can continue generating offensively.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like that's a couple of really good games in a row for him. And I think he's overall been, playing a little bit better on the puck over the last little bit. So Excited to maybe see if this is sort of a turning point for Evangelista. Maybe this is sort of the stretch that gets him going on a good stretch towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
More to get to on today's episode. A wild finish from Saturday's game, and not just from the Preds perspective either. We'll talk about this game from the Islanders perspective and whether we think the whole emptying the bench is a big deal or no deal. Get to that in just a second, but first, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Folks, if one of your resolutions was to get out of the house more, maybe go to a few more hockey games in your area. Maybe check out a few more concerts, a few more comedy shows. If that's on your list of things to do this year, then you're going to need Game Time. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They have a feature that lets you view your exact seat with your exact view before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting into. And their all-in prices show you your total up front, so you're not floored by all of those hidden fees, $100 extra when you go to check out your tickets. And the cool thing about Game Time is that they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. They have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, sometimes even an hour after it starts. So it's the place to find last-minute seats, and you can find exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and of course, hockey. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Ann, let's backtrack a little bit to Saturday. The Nashville Predators taking on the New York Islanders. An exciting 3-1 win. The 3-1 might be a little bit of a surprising scoreline because with 8 seconds left, it was 1-1.
I know.
Yeah.
We pulled a Dallas, y'all.
Yeah, we did pull a Dallas. I mean, one of those goals was an empty netter, but hey, you know, we'll take it. Craziest ending we've seen in Smashville in a while, Ann.
Yes, I think it was definitely a crazy ending. Probably, if we're looking back on the season, the Colorado ending was a little bit more dramatic, but this one was really right up there. You know, this was a game that was scoreless through 2 periods. I mean, it was really a lot of tight defense. There was not a lot of space on the ice, and it was very much, it felt more like chess than checkers. You know, this was not an open game of, you know, a lot of breakaways. There just wasn't a lot of space on the ice. The Islanders finally scored first. They had about 8 minutes left in the game. The Islanders got on the board, and it kind of felt like goals were so hard to come by. You kind of wondered, is this going to be the final score? Because it was just so hard to get a good quality scoring opportunity. And then Luke Evangelista draws a penalty and then comes out and scores a peeper goal. We have to call it a peeper goal when Evangelista scores it with less than 5 minutes.
Can I ask why we have to call it that?
Because that's what Luke Evangelista calls it. He calls it the peeper. And because I just think that that's what we have to start calling the power play. It's just cool. It's the peeper.
Anyway.
Not feeling it?
Not feeling it.
Okay, well, I feel it enough for both of us. So scored on the power play, tied the game up with less than 5 minutes to go. And then you're thinking, wow, 2 goals in this game. This game is definitely going to go to overtime because, again, goals, you know, were so hard to come by. And then we have Alexander Carrier, who did nothing if not scare himself with the game-winning goal. Got the puck from Jeremy Lauzon after some great forechecking, caused a turnover. Jeremy Lauzon got the puck, passed it to Carrier. Carrier's shot ricochets off a defender's stick, snaps it in half, and it just kind of floats almost in slow motion up and over Ilya Sorokin, who sat on the ice and looked like somebody had stolen his puppy. And that happened with 7.9 seconds left to give the Predators a 2-1 lead. Juuso Parssinen added the empty net goal. to make it 3-1, which was shocking because, again, with 8 minutes left in the game, there were no goals. And all of a sudden we had 4 goals, which seemed like it was raining goals at the end of this game. So it was a good game for the Nashville Predators. It was a different kind of a game, a different kind of a win, I think, for the Predators than what we've seen them do before in this season.
Yeah, I missed this game for reasons. Oh wait, that was yes. I don't know. I missed this game for a reason. Who knows what reason? But I remember like talking to you about it, and you're like, yeah, literally nothing happened until the very end. Like
there was no space.
Yeah, and then when it did happen, yeah, yay. Yeah. So interesting sort of finish for Nashville there. It's funny, they got kind of cursed by the Chicago, or not the Chicago, but the Dallas last second blown thing back, a month ago, and it feels like this is kind of the redemption for that. The big clip that I did want to talk about, the clip that's kind of making its way around the NHL right now. After Juuso Parssinen scored, and I think there were 1 second on the clock at that point, maybe just a little bit less,
probably less than 1 second.
The point being, the game was over, but not officially over, and you saw the Islanders leave the bench, just go ahead and head down the tunnel before the game was officially over. There's a lot of people kind of talking about this being a bad look for the Islanders, not just like the typical like New York, everybody's soft, that kind of media, but a lot of what I would say sort of well-rounded middle of the just sort of like like people around the NHL media that we would consider to be like, oh yeah, nice level-headed people,
right? Not drama queens.
Like a lot of you guys know who that we're kind of talking about, but there's a lot of people kind of going, oh yeah, this isn't a good look. You did not necessarily feel that way, or at least you feel a little bit that maybe this is overblown a little bit. So give us your perspective on this.
Yeah. So I was actually not at the physical Bridgestone Arena because I was sick and can't be there. But in watching the game, and like you said, I think there was a pretty big to-do online about, they left, they were mad, the coaching staff and the players walked down the tunnel and weren't there for the last face-off. I really do feel like this is much ado about nothing, to quote, I think it's Shakespeare. Because when Juuso Parssinen scored, there was less than a second left. And so the goal horn that sounded also was the end of the game horn, in essence. And so I think when that, sound went, they all were like, okay, the game is over. Less than a second, I think there was like 0.2 seconds left when the puck crossed the goal line and stuff like that. And nobody came back out for the face-off after they had sort of reset the clock. And everybody's like, oh, this is terrible and this is a bad look for the Islanders. No, I just think the Islanders thought the game was over, y'all. I just don't. I think that it was not, they took their ball and went home. I think they thought that the game was over. So I wouldn't read too much into that. But boy, did people online make kind of a big stink about the fact that there was nobody on the Islanders bench. And I'm like, y'all, I think it was just situational. I don't think it was emotional.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we've seen it before where it's, in the NFL where somebody, there's everybody like runs to the locker room thinking over, and then just they don't realize that there's like, a late penalty called, and it's like, oh, we have to bring everybody out for one more snap. And it's just, it's sometimes instead of just bringing everybody back out, it's just, oh, okay, who was left there to, and it's like a hodgepodge of players that just run out there for basically like one more kneel down.
Yeah. Who was the NFL player who quit during the game and like ran across?
Antonio Brown.
Nobody was Antonio Browning here at this game, y'all. This was just they thought the game was over.
Yeah,
I
you didn't
really
see Bo Horvat rip off his jersey and start flicking off the Bridgestone Arena crowd.
that did not happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think maybe this is just more of a misunderstanding than, oh my
Yeah.
God, the Islanders are pissed and quit on their team. Unless they said different. But
Yeah.
who,
Yeah, I think that, I don't think it was a thing. I think
Yeah.
it was not a thing.
Yeah. So one more game to talk about from this past week, and it was a big one.
It was a doozy.
It was a big one. Predators not just beat the Dallas Stars, but I think it's fair to say and beat up on the Dallas Stars, which is important. Let's talk about that game coming up in just 1 second.
First, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Sleeper. It is the halfway point of the season, and Preds fans, this team is still in the playoff hunt. But regardless of what happens with the Nashville Predators in the postseason, I want to remind you that you can win big right now by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Sleeper is fun and easy. It's the easiest way to play fantasy hockey. Entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick whether players will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, shots on goal, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can win big. Use our promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you're going to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That is code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.
All right, Anne, let us talk about the Nashville Predators win over the Dallas Stars, shall we?
We shall.
Nashville Predators won 6-3, although important to note that the last 2 were empty net goals. So yeah, so it's kind of 4-3. But the big thing to me, Anne, is that this was a game I think where Nashville really outplayed the Dallas Stars for the vast majority of the game. I mean, they outshot Dallas, the first period, I think was a little bit of a toss up. But from the rest of the game on out, the Predators outshot Dallas 32-15 in the last 2 periods of the game.
Yeah, this was a game where I really feel like you said, the first period, I think the teams were sort of settling in, but then I think really Nashville kind of controlled a lot of this game. They were up 2-0, which I think if we've learned anything in the 2023-24 season, 2-goal leads mean nothing, especially against Dallas. And of course, Hakanpää comes out and he scores Dallas's first goal, and instantly, like on a cellular level, I think Predators fans were like, no, not this again, not this again.
Yeah.
But it really was, I think, a really great performance by the Predators against a very good Dallas team. I do want to say, for me, the best play of the game, and I think one of the best plays of Roman Jossi's season so far, came where it was a Philip Forsberg goal, but Roman Josi had the puck kind of at the point and really faked like he was going to shoot. I mean, everybody was looking at the goal thinking he was going to shoot, and he faked shot, passed it to Forsberg, who scored from the circle. And I just think, those are the high quality plays that you need people like Roman Josi to make, Philip Forsberg to make, Ryan O'Reilly to make. You really saw the veterans step up and kind of lead the team in playing as high a caliber game as they needed to play. And I think it's interesting. I wonder if the Predators are sort of falling into that we play to our opponent. Because we look at the Anaheim game, I think the Nashville Predators sort of played to their opponent. But when they're faced with a team like Dallas, they kind of rise to that challenge. Hopefully that's something that the team is going to kind of mature through, as these younger players get more experience on the ice. But I really felt like this was a really solid across the board win for the Nashville Predators. I think it shows you that this is a team that can compete with some of the top teams in this league. And I think the Predators responded better in moments because it was like, you were talking about punch and counter punch. That was this game, it was like the Predators would get a 2-goal lead and then Dallas would score, and then the Predators would score, but then Dallas would score. And it's like the Predators are learning how to respond after goals, after penalties. And I think this was kind of a good maturing game for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned, Dallas started to get some goals in late, and I think all of us were like, "Uh-oh, it's happening again, isn't it?" I think that's sort of the next, sort of maturity thing for this young Nashville Predators team, is being able to kind of really clamp down and just sort of, stomp on the neck of Dallas rather than maybe just letting them kind of sneak back in it. And obviously, like, credit to Nashville, they did a good job of sort of holding the fort, at the end, and they still got this win. And I think there's something to be said for that. But, you really, you want to see this game, finish 4-1 or, 5-2 or something like that. You don't want to necessarily have to rely on 2 empty net goals late when you play as well as the Predators did in this game. Matt Duchene finally gets his revenge goal, Anne.
I know. It's like King Solomon and the baby. You're torn in half. I mean, want to see Matt Duchene succeed, just not against the Nashville Predators and just not in a Dallas Stars uniform. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. He did get a goal. It was a great goal. I mean, it was a really good goal. But I have to say, you watch where the Nashville Predators are right now. You watch who they have on their roster, how they're developing. And as much as I love Matt Duchene and staked some happiness in my marriage on him, I have to say that I feel like the Nashville Predators are doing okay without Duchene.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to admit. And fortunately, my husband won't listen to this episode, so he won't ever know that I said that. But I think, it's been really good to see the Nashville Predators be able to develop some players and bring in some players where there's not just this huge gaping wound where Johansson and Duchene are not.
Yeah. Interesting thing from the rest of this game, Anne, is Nashville Predators 3 giveaways this whole game. The Dallas Stars 21.
Yes.
21-3 on giveaways in this game. And, I think maybe this is just a sign, like, obviously Dallas didn't have their best game, but, the Nashville Predators, this is sort of what they can look like when they protect the puck and sort of play clean and, give their best against good teams. I think this is kind of a version of what they can look like. All right, and so 3 games over the past weekend, 2 wins. How do we feel about this team right now, considering all of the scuttlebutt that we had last week?
Yeah. What's funny is you have to feel pretty good about the wins that the Predators got, against 2 pretty good teams. I know the Islanders are sort of a little bit on the struggle bus right now, but, to be able to come in to beat Dallas again in Dallas, I think is huge. My concern about this team is that they're still in that spot where they don't control their own postseason fate. By dropping games to, dropping this game to Vegas that really was closer than the final score was, those are the games that you have to find a way to get 2 points or 1 point even, because I worry that if the Predators can't close out some of those games, their postseason fate is going to be in someone else's hands. And that's not where we want it to be, especially when those someone else are like the Edmonton Oilers or the Seattle Kraken, who did finally lose after 10 games. But, the Predators do need to find ways to get points in pretty much every game they step on the ice for at this point. So, I feel good about it. This is better than I think than what we thought when we realized what was happening with the roster. But still, it's like, now we know what you're capable of. Please don't bring home a C-.
Yeah. They are 44 games in at 49 points. They have the first wild card spot, but the team right behind them is the Edmonton Oilers, 2 points behind.
Yeah.
And they've played 39 games, so 5 games in hand. The Kraken are right behind them, but they've played fewer games. The Flames are 2 points behind Nashville, but they've played a fewer game. Even Arizona is 5 points behind Nashville, and they have 3 games in hand. So, Nashville looking good in a playoff spot right now, but you also have to realize there are some red hot teams right behind them and some red hot teams directly in front of them as well. So again, there's not going to be a lot of room for error for Nashville moving forward. And again, we've said this before, this is a free season for Nashville. They're playing with house money. We get all that. But the point of the season was you wanted to see them maybe get a little bit better as the year went on. Mm-hmm. If there's, glaring mistakes early on, clean that up as the year went on. Players being a little bit more consistent and finding some consistency as the year went on. That to me is going to be the big X factor moving forward. And I think, and that's ultimately going to decide where the Nashville Predators wind up at the season's end. Tomorrow, Nashville Predators, they're doing some stuff. They continue their road trip. They're doing
not coming back to the snow, y'all.
Yeah, they're doing something. They have a day off tomorrow. They play the Kings on a Thursday, and then a showdown with the Coyotes on Saturday afternoon. Some more on that coming up later this week. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at _NS Morgan on social media, or read my work at penaltyboxradio.com. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked on Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back with an all-new episode tomorrow. We'll see you then.